Welcome back to day 141. I'm in the mixture of I actually watched the freaking video for once in my life and wanting to talk a lot. I really, yeah, shout out to, I know it's just a really funny story, but I'm just like, there has to be more to it, right? Like, there has to be. Pretty much what happened is apparently there's one, museum first thing was like, must be a religious thing. When in doubt, slap it with, it was religious. And they said it was a religious thing, but everyone, like, apparently this one person was actively using it, and they're like, she's like, it makes gloves. It's a knitting thing. And it was just such a funny thing to be like, people really would see in probably embroidery circles, knitting needles, all that in a perfect little, like, box, like, I have a chest for it, and this chest, and just like, why isn't it a chest? Why is it like, and it's really interesting because it's like, well, it's lost forever, and people are like, no, it's not. It just, that also kind of shows who's in charge of that kind of field and stuff. It's kind of like, apparently, like, this year or something was the first black man to be in a space station, and I'm like, what? The idea that that's like, there's an underlying reason because of these things. Like, why didn't the scientists know it was a tool still being used? Like, you could buy it. Like, it's still being used to make gloves, even if it's not like the way that's typically used, but you can use it. And it's like, well, it's because who was put into science for how many years, in what kind of places, it might not be the women who grew up being taught the old ways of knitting. Like, I say old ways, not like the modern knitting, like that, using that machine, or cube object. And that's like a thing where, with like the black man in space being like, or in the space station being like, well, is someone in the hiring department racist who doesn't like hiring or doesn't like promoting? That definitely could be it. Is it, how much money does it take to become this kind of scientist? Then also, what kind of schools do you have to go to become this kind of scientist? If there's racism in those people, or if it was different things. And then let's not forget, like, financially, how much money would it be? Like, there's a bunch of reasons that add up to it, which is also, like, for me, because of the whole Unus Annus thing, it really gets to me a lot, because I had people were talking about, like, well, people are upset about Little Nas X, but they're not upset about literally last year with yeah, like, I'm not your friend, I'm not your anything, damn. You think that you're the man, I think therefore, I think therefore I am. Like, I'm not the bad guy. She has a brother named Phineas. immediately. I really can't think of it. Anyways, yeah, you know who she is. You know. I'm not the bad guy. Phineas and she had green hair for a long time. They got like green roots. Anyways, the point is, that one, whoever the hell that name is, that it does not come to me, it's eluding me. Anyways, she made a video with, where the devil in it. There wasn't as much backlash. And there wasn't as much backlash with the TV show Lucifer. There isn't that much backlash with Supernatural, with God, and Metatron, and Gabriel, and blah. I mean, for Constantine, the movie had Gabriel on. By the way, I love Gabriel. Best part of that movie. Yes, you know? I mean, not done in the same exact way, but I mean, friggin' literally Good Omens. You know what I'm saying? So what I'm saying is, like, why are all those okay? Well, Nas X not. Well, is it the very explicit homophobia? Is it racism? Yes to probably both of them. I mean, but that being said, it's a racism aspect, because if you look at it, it's an over the top sexuality of a gay man mixed with racism, mainly the racism. Because if you look in Supernatural, God is a bisexual guy. Castiel is bi or gay or, you know, queer in some way. You know, all of these people are, you know, bisexual, like Lucifer is bisexual and Lucifer. But also the main love interest is a woman. And they're both white, you know? Where it's like, you don't see him in the same way. Like, you kind of see maybe guys leaving his house sometimes, but like, they don't show, they don't show like the sexuality. You don't see him in the middle of like dripping hot wax on a dude. You see more like, oh, hey, and that's it, you know what I'm saying? So it really shows that. So anyways, I saw a thing where somebody was like, look at what Caitlyn Bennett, I don't care about her though, but what she said, and I'm just like, that's clearly edited. And I looked and I'm like, that's clearly edited, but I went to her page and she was like, this is unrelated, I don't care about her cold ass take about Call Me By Your Name of Lil Nas X video. I mean, I just know that he took it way better than me, because if she's like, oh, you're calling me poopy pants or something nonsense, but you have gay sex, and I'm just like, do you know what a douche is? Do you understand that that's not how that works? Because like, maybe you should learn just a little bit about douches before you realize, like, you know? Anyways, so pretty much, no, you don't have to prove yourself to gay sex. Anyways, the point was, what I did see though, she was talking about, like, oh, this percent of fat people or obese people are the ones in the hospital with severe COVID cases. I mean, okay, let's break that down, you know? Let's figure that out. If you look at severe COVID cases in the United States, in like the hospitals, you do realize the connection between being overweight and being poor are tied together already. So then look at poor places with people that work longer shifts in unsafe environments. I mean, if I work an office job, I can stay home. I work at a minimum wage, like grocery store place. Do you know how many people go in and out of that? Do you know how many people you have to interact with, how many items you interact with when you're scanning items at the front of a grocery store? You know what I'm saying? You interact with so many more people, even just you, let's say have a more well-paid job, an office that you can do from home. You go and now you can, maybe if you would have like grocery shopping once every week instead of them dealing with how many customers throughout the whole day. And then you're like, okay, moving on from that, I mean, yeah, you can look at a lot of statistics of being like, okay, let's look at how many people die from a different preventable disease based on, let's say, diabetes. Diabetes is easy to maintain if you have the money. So it's like, yeah, my granddad, he had to, I don't know, I assume he still does. He needed to check his blood sugar and stuff, and maybe he had like insulin, but mainly it was just a monitoring thing. It wasn't always. And yeah, well, we have the money to pay, and he definitely had, like, it, especially him, had the money to pay for like insulin. We can pay for insulin. We can pay for medicine. He will never go to the hospital being, I'm dying, I need insulin, and then go, no, you're not dying yet. When you lose circulation to your foot, then you'll be classifying as dying, and then we'll give you insulin. Yeah, he's not gonna do that. My grandfather obviously is a white man. Okay, anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, pretty much you can see that people, like, okay, well that means you can probably find an overlapping group of people. One more interruption, and I'm just leaving the video there. I'm done. I don't want to be here. Anyways, the point is, you can find an overlapping thing. You look at anything and try to twist it into a different basis. Like you can, correlation doesn't equal causation, you know? That being said, there could be a correlation and even could be a causation of certain things, but I think correlation doesn't mean causation. There could be a whole freaking mess of steps around it, like the obese people or overweight people with COVID symptoms. Again, poor. If they are poor, that means their diet's bad. If their diet's bad, that means they're fat. If they're fat, they might not get the vitamin, or not if they're fat, if they're malnutrition, they might not get the vegetables that they need, the vitamins, the different benefits that they need. Could equal different things. Again, certain paying jobs equal certain amount of risk. Certain risks equal, you see what I'm saying? So it's like with poor people, like certain people not being able to afford insulin. Okay, so it can be like, oh, well, diabetes kill more blank people than blank. It's like, okay, but you can look at a lot of like different things and be like, this is the cause. It's like, well, it's not that. It could be this, it could be that, it could be over here, and it just can be not really correlated. That's a lot of things with the idea that, and my own church uses this one growing up, where they're like, black men just don't live as long. And then the actual quote, they quoted a study, and I'm like, I know that study, I read that study for school. That study is super duper flawed, and also you're looking at the study isn't flawed, but people reading just the final image of statistics and thinking they know the causation is flawed. So like the idea that my white pastor was saying, oh, black men live this much younger than white men, I'm going out, literally he called out a black man, it's like, I'm going to outlive you, in the audience. Which, by the way, there was only like one black man in the, it's not an audience, it's now I'm just thinking of Billy again. Billy, anyways, not the point. And called him out, and I was like, I'm just gonna live longer than you. And I'm just like, that's really in poor taste, to say the least. And the idea that interview, again, if you read that this one study that he talked about, and you have to realize that it's like, yes, it's said that black men on average live younger, but it isn't for health reasons. It explicitly called out because we are taking it from ages 18 to the max age. And looking at it, well, you have to look at where they grew up, what, like, the situation they were in, what schooling, what job, what health, their family, blah, blah. But also, you have to bring in the account of, again, where they live. You know, it brings down a lot when a young black kid gets shot by a police officer. Okay, again, if they had, like, my father grew up pretty poor, very poor. His gums are just destroyed. He doesn't have freaking all of his teeth. They're gone. They can't. His teeth were healthy. His gums are so unhealthy they fell out. Okay, like, that causes effect in the future. So if you're malnutritioned, you know, there's a reason why there's this correlation there. And the idea that now, you know, like I told you, now my grandfather can pay for medicine and stuff, it's like, well, there's still gonna be problems from certain things. This happens with, like, that study where it's like kids have a horn growing in their neck. It's like, well, kids could have technically always had that. They didn't. The reason people like to be like, it's because kids do this now, like, they look down when they're too young and they're growing a certain thing in their neck. Well, it's like, hey, the kids that were studied, it went away. So if I had that, there was no way of knowing that I had it or not, since it went away. So we don't know kids didn't have this previously. We just now figured it out that kids have it. It doesn't necessarily mean it's new. It just is newly discovered. It's like if an ancient civilization was discovered, it isn't new. It wouldn't just appear. It was just newly discovered. You see the difference?